Thank you for the kind introduction, and I hope I can convince you that you did choose the right stage now and the right spot. Talking about a really innovative topic. Today here we are at the GreenTech Festival, and in many areas we see mobility to be a core element of the green transition, right? And today I want to shed some light on some topic that maybe do not make headline news so often. Still topics that are absolutely essential for the success of e-mobility. And yes, this is a real green industry, an industry where technology really makes a difference. So let's get started. First, a brief background, what is digital charging solutions all about? It's not a company presentation, but it needs some explanation because you have to understand why the charging industry, let's put it like this, is quite a complex animal. So our role is basically to connect the customer with his car, with his mobile device, or even fleet providers, with the charging infrastructure. Our focus is on public charging, the most relevant beyond home and work. Connect these two ecosystems basically together. That's digital charging solutions, that's our job. And if you, on a daily basis, charge your BMW, your Mercedes, your Kia, whatever, or use alphabet services, etc., then you are basically already using our service today. We are the providers of the service behind those brands, and here besides the stage you find Charge Now. Charge Now is our own brand. It basically offers the same service as we offer them for the big OEMs. Okay, so let's go into the topic. Let's start with a big picture and think about what is it about CO2 emissions. Not greenhouse gas, it's about CO2 emissions. So what are the strongest drivers, emittance of CO2 emissions globally? And probably it's not that much of a surprise because I think many experts of the green industry are here today. It's by far the power industry, but then closely followed by transportation. So transportation clearly is one important sector that is responsible for lots of the CO2 emissions internationally. We know China, India, other markets are, in terms of emissions, are also leading in a certain way. But we know that in Europe we have probably the best levers to influence that. So now, what are the drivers a bit more in detail that are responsible for CO2 emissions? And clearly there we have to look at the passenger car, so individual mobility, then compared with the classical transportation and light trucks. And here we have to say that the individual mobility is probably the strongest driver within that segment. We will be seeing the electrification of heavy-duty trucks in the future. This will be a game changer in the transportation industry. For this, there needs a lot of still infrastructure investment. This will be the next big thing to come. But for now, the strongest level we have clearly in the segment of passenger cars. So now, we know transportation, we know it's passenger cars, and then the question is, what's the best lever? What's the strongest element? If we would change that, then we would change the CO2 emission in that segment. And you might remember lots of discussion in the news about e-fuels, etc. That inspired me to bring up the point again, what is now the best combustion or the best propulsion energy for mobility? And here, this is now, to me, a very interesting picture, interesting analysis. This is not an aspect about cradle to grave, so production of a car until recycling of a car. This is only focusing on what is the most efficient energy source. Compared here, the classical EV, the direct charging, then hydrogen and e-fuels. And e-fuels are super hyped in the media at the moment, but if we compare those three energy sources, we see that by far direct charging is leading. And what you see here, because numbers are small, is on the upper side of the chart, you see the production efficiency. So from well, as it said, from well to tank. And then from that one, then the overall efficiency from tank to wheel. So the production of the energy basically, and then its consumption. This again shows this is a brilliant efficiency that we see in electric mobility. So that does not mean that it's only electric. We will see hydrogen also in the big trucks coming up, but also there we see the public debate and investment shifting very much into electromobility. So now you know you have a car, it needs to be electric, and then, how can I charge? Charging is the big challenge, right? And yes, it used to be the challenge. It is honestly quite an interesting business, but how much is that really a challenge at the moment? And here, to me, it's interesting to compare the old industry with the new industry. So the old combustion energy with the electric mobility. And here, clearly, it's about fueling against charging, right? So you think, or the public perception is that a fueling station is around the corner everywhere. It's super easy, but yet, how does it work with charging? So let's have a look on the numbers. So just a question, rhetorical one, how many fueling points do you think that we have in Europe? Not fueling stations, but fueling points. Honestly, it's a number that we have to calculate on our own because this official data is not there. But we know that we have 120,000 fueling stations in Europe, summing up to roughly 800,000 fueling points or pumps, right? That's quite an impressive number. But yet you have to remember, against those 800,000 fueling points, you have more than 280 million vehicles on the roads. So this is 1 to 350. So 350 cars have to share one pump at the end of the day. So now let's go charging. How many charging points do you think that we have? Come on. It's less, that's true, but how much? 20,000 is the first number. Who's next? Pun? 10,000, no. Guys, come up, you have to go up because that's indication this is far too less. I hear it, it's getting close. Guys, we are beyond 500,000 charging points already. And this is not 500,000 charging points for 280 million cars. No, it's 500,000 for roughly 3 million. And you see the ratio here. So times are over since a while that charging was, and the infrastructure was, the great challenge in that industry. Clearly, you have to find the charging infrastructure. It's not the easy one like we have the fueling station. Lots of things you still have to learn. But just in matter of size of the network, this is really, really impressive R&D. And this is one of the strongest driver of the EV sales, right? Because if people feel more comfortable that they know they can charge, then it drives the industry. And in fact, this is what we see. So in 22, despite the fact that the overall car sales were going down, BEV, so the battery electric vehicles were going up 3 percentage points. And also intermediate solutions like the hybrids, full hybrids or plug-in hybrids were expanding sectors. So the growth in the EV segment is against the trend of the automotive industry, and there are super exciting products coming into the market. This is what is driving the industry. Yet, it's also one of the reasons I'm here to talk, right, is there's still some prejudices in the industry when it comes to, okay, is it now the right moment to buy an electric vehicle? And this is my favorite chart of this presentation, so please pay attention. It's about the reason, what are the drivers, or what are the strongest elements that people, strongest concern that make people hesitate to buy an EV. That's an interesting study in Germany coming out a couple of weeks ago. And this is the statistic of people before they bought an EV. And here you see again, apart from price, you see the reach, so range anxiety. Am I able to drive from A to B, and am I able to charge in between? Charging on long distance driving, and charging at home. So these were basically the three biggest concerns, and in the public debate, it's always the reach. And now, the next click shows you how this picture changes once people have made their experience with driving an EV. And this picture completely changes. So, reach is no topic anymore. Long distance charging, totally irrelevant. Very positive impressions. What are the major concerns for those who signed a contract and experienced the long waiting is that basically currently the delivery time of the vehicle, this is a real problem. So we know about the chip crisis and logistics, etc. So this is what really currently hinders the growth of the segment. Then we have clearly purchase price and becoming ever more important, am I able to charge my car at work? To integrate it naturally in my daily habit. And this is major point of concern, but when it comes to the reach, long distance driving, etc., this is old school, this changed. Numbers prove it, we see it on the roads, but still public perception kind of different sometimes. So, this is also because public charging is not the only driver, right? So as I said, workplace charging becoming ever more relevant. The difference between driving an EV and driving in a combustion engine is that it's easy to integrate the charging infrastructure in your home, at work, at supermarkets, wherever. You can make a pause or you have to park your car. There, already today, you are able to charge. In the future, this will be just natural. So an extra step to go somewhere should be the exception. You should be able to charge wherever your car has to park naturally. So we have the charging infrastructure, and in the charging infrastructure we have lots of power, because it's not only to have the infrastructure, but it's only what about the speed and what about the capacity of network. And also here you see quite impressive numbers coming up in the last years, especially in Germany. Germany, in terms of investments, leading the pack in Europe by far. We say that Germany roughly is 50% of the European market, by the way, when it comes to electric mobility. But we see the others also catching up. But here, the general energy capacity just last year went up 40%. And within this orange bars, you have the high power charging infrastructure. Here defined everything above 22 kilowatts, but the really interesting part is the one about beyond 150 kilowatts, and this went up even 80%. So this is the high power charging you find at highways, where you have to really to charge as fast as possible, because you don't want to park or to charge longer than you need to take a coffee, take a break, or take a snack. But again, here you see really impressive investments. It's not only the infrastructure, it's also the sheer numbers going up big time. Yet how does that translate to what happens at this single charging station? Now you learned about lots of energy, now you learned about a big network, but what does it mean for those who provide the service, for those who invest into bringing you the charging infrastructure to the streets? So question, what's the share of charge points occupied? So how many charge points are occupied if you're looking for them? Percentage-wise, what do you think? Who's first? Not bad. So you hit it quite well. So it's between 16 and 20% of the infrastructure is becoming occupied. Or with other words, the likelihood that you find an available charging station is quite high. Yes, again, you have to differentiate between urban areas, in the inner cities, and rural areas. This is all mixed. This is totally true. But this shows also a big potential in terms of growth, that this current infrastructure in Germany is able to digest. Or with other words, if I would be an investor, a historic investor into charge point industry, charge points, then I would hope for much more demand before I would keep on investing. So the whole discussion about 1 million charge points, whatever, is absolutely the key to bring that to a success. I think that's a totally wrong approach. The infrastructure has to be, or those who invest in the infrastructure have to be able to also monetize on the growth of the infrastructure to make money out of it. And then we see it step by step. If you just look at the sheer numbers, we see a net that is quite well prepared to digest the next growth. What now the focus has to be to invest also in those rural areas where the pure demand might not drive it that much, but which is necessary to go in the coverage of the entire country. So Lots of energy, a great network, free charging stations everywhere. So looking great. But now, one step back, and let's have a view on how is the charging network built up. And because this is quite a special animal when it comes to the industry sector. Because for providing to you as a customer the access to the 500,000 plus charge points in Europe, you do not have to aggregate 10 charge point operators. You do not have to aggregate 100 charge point aggregators. It's more than 1,000. More than 1,000 charge point operators you have to aggregate to give you an access to that network. So our service provides 98% access to whoever provides energy as a charge point operator out there. But these are up to 1,001. So this is kind of where our business model is built on. Yeah? That's how we operate. That's why we operate. But it's clearly different from the picture I designed before. So before I showed you the analogy between fueling and charging, and now let's take this picture away, because with fueling is not a good analogy. Because if you see here a huge network, you see the need for having access to the network in every country, and you get an invoice once a month wherever you charged in Europe. And this probably doesn't remind you of your fueling experience, but it probably reminds you more of your mobile experience. Because charging is much closer as a business model to the telco industry than it is to everything that has anything to do with oil. So this is what really makes it special. And if you look at the customer journey, you might think, okay, I pay and I get an invoice, and that's it. No. In charging, there are much of more service steps that we offer to our customers, and that made, at the end of the day, a great charging experience. Because it starts with finding the charging point, to identify whether it is available, whether this is a fast charging, a slow charging infrastructure, whether it's available, what about the price, how to find it, navigation, and at the end of the day, potentially even payment via the app. You can do it via RFID card and another service I will present in a moment. But the full customer journey from finding the service to charging, this is what we call the customer experience. And one essential element in that customer experience is a long-haul driving. Huh? You remember that especially on long-distance driving, there was still historically many concerns whether the car would work and would be able to reach also long-distance charging. Here we have our route planning offer. So that means we combine the state of charge, SOC here. So you insert what is the stage of your battery, so how much power do you still have. You can select your specific model and engine type. We display weather and other conditions into that algorithm, and at the end of the day, we provide the customers a customized tour to a long-distance haul. That means not on every station you have to charge 100%. Sometimes it's better to have just topping up 40 or 50% if it's a high power charging, because it's super fast. It's good for a coffee. And another station, you put another 80% on it. So it's not only where can I do it, but what's the fastest and the most efficient way to come to A to B. And just a couple of weeks ago, I drove by car from Berlin to Oslo, and I had to charge 5 times. And it was about 15 minutes. The longest was beyond 30 minutes, but this was the reason because I had to queue at the burger stand and to get a coffee afterwards. That was the reason, not that it was a challenge to the infrastructure. And we tested lots of our partners, and it's really impressive in terms of availability and charging speed. It becomes a bit more crowded in Northern Europe, honestly, because Norway, etc., is super advanced. But there you see also a much more advanced infrastructure already. And if you walk through Oslo, the thing that you directly notice, it's super quiet on the street. So the lack of combustion noise in the public arena, if you are over a certain tipping point in terms of number of cars, it's really impressive, I can tell. So I want to talk about technology. This is one of the coolest things that currently are on offer and help to drive EV sales. The second thing is plug and charge. So many providers are already in the market, started Mercedes and others are coming now. You can forget about an RFID card to communicate with the charging pole. You can forget about an app. The car does it all. The only thing you have to do, you drive to a charge point, you tell your car, I want to charge, and just by plugging in the cable into the infrastructure, the authentication works in the background. You are authenticated who you are, what kind of tariff do you have, and the charging starts directly. Then you plug off, you drive away, and at the end of the month, you get your invoice and you are done. This will become the new industry standard. There were many discussions, long years, whether inductive charging would be the next big thing. No, it won't. Just in terms of charging speed and efficiency, this is becoming the next big thing. So fully integrated charging service, integrated in the car, behind the curtain, fully integrated into your dashboard, that you do not need any further device, but you can rely that your car is communicating totally in an integrated way. So this is the next big thing technology-wise. And the next big thing is smart charging. So smart charging will be a big game changer for many industries. That's pretty sure. And it has already now you see the first signs that it's getting an input, has a strong influence on how people plan their buildings, their homes, and how in the future the car will communicate with the grid. But for those who are not so familiar yet, I want to just briefly summarize what it is. So basically, smart charging idea is that you balance the peak loads. So not all the cars are charging at the very same moment and are bringing down the grid. This is pretty much the idea. And that is needed, just my private experience when I moved to Berlin and wanted to to install my wall box at my house. They didn't allow me to, because the grid was not stable enough. And I had a couple of other neighbors that already driving EVs, and they were just worried that the grid in that area would go down. This is a couple of years back, but that just with a higher number of electric vehicles, you can imagine this problem will come back. So trying to balance the peaks, and beyond that, it's not only efficiency, it's only about potential business that can created with this. Because on smart charging, basically you can talk about 4 levels. So the first level is that you tell your car when you want to charge, when he should be, or you tell your infrastructure that you have in your house when the car should be charged. But this is not much rocket science. But if you know that overnight energy is much cheaper, then it's pretty easy. It's for you it's a big advantage to charge overnight. Next thing is then that not you have to think about telling the infrastructure what to do, but that the grid communicates seamless through your household device with the car and gets the information when is the best moment, the cheapest energy available, or when is the peak load at the bottom, and therefore it's not stressing the grid but giving you a good offer. These 2 levels are already in the market and becoming implemented step by step. The next thing is a bidirectional communication. That means that the car and the house communicate. That when the car sees, okay, I have pulled lots of energy, then I can give it to the house. Or if the house, your solar panels provided a lot of energy, and the car could need it, then the house energy is pushed into the car. So communication between the house and the car. And last but not least, the really big thing is then when the grid communicates in a fully intelligent way with the car. And meaning that you as a customer, you can then buffer energy out of the grid at a moment at a low time, and when the grid needs energy, you can push it back into the grid and make money out of it. That sounds a bit futuristic, but this is what will come. And the more automated this will go. And already we, with our business model clearly, but also many car manufacturers are looking in that area. How relevant is that, and how can we provide services to our customer to make money by driving an EV or by driving an EV at fully free cost, because they would help to balance out the load in the grid. But this just some small examples on showing where the direction of electric charging goes and why we are probably at a already very mature stage of electric mobility. And summing up, if some of the core messages I hope I was able to convey with you, that yes, it's about shifting away from classical fuels. Yes, it's about charging green energy wherever the energy is really green. That's not my business. Other have to take care of that, and that's expanding big time. But if you do not care about how everything gets integrated into the ecosystem, that doesn't make sense. So the energy, the green energy, has to find the way to the customer. For the customer experience has to be as seamless as possible. Efficiencies in load balancing, bring it into the car and bringing it back to the net, and integrating as much as possible into the car, into behind the curtain. That is what really makes a difference. And apart all those rational arguments, privately I still think not only you feel better driving electric, but it's also much more fun. And I can just encourage you, drive everything that you can drive. Lots of test drive is also here. And I can assure you, if you ever had owned an electric an EV, you will never drive anything else again, because just fun. And with this, I'm through my deck. I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jörg, for that really insightful presentation.
Are you driving an EV?
I'm driving a hybrid, actually.
So you're on the way.
I'm on my way, at least. Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of innovation going on, and I'm sure the audience has a lot of burning questions. Is there anyone who would like to take the mic?
Hello. I want to ask about smart charging, etc. At the same time, the batteries are aging because you're charging and discharging them more often. So maybe you're making money out of selling electricity, but at the same time you're losing it because you will have to replace the battery sooner.
Yeah, excellent point. I think one of the next speeches is a guy that I know well from the automotive industry. Ask him the same question again, because you have the absolutely right point, because that's where the automotive manufacturers are currently working on. Whether this has really an effect on the batteries, and whether then the automotive manufacturer is responsible for this effect towards the customer. So this is in fact one of the technical challenges that still has to be solved. But this challenge will be overcome, that's for sure. That's just a matter of time.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah, go.
Do you think that EVs are the solution for a greener world?
They are a very essential element of it, yes. A very essential element, because also the EV sector has some challenges in terms also to produce an EV costs lots of energy and raw materials, but compared to the combustion engine, it's much more advantageous. So every EV that is sold and built instead of a combustion engine has a huge difference to it. And apart from that, these rational arguments, it's also a more ethical thing. Yeah? We have to start somewhere, and with just creating a greener world and increasing the sensitivity on everything that is CO2 emissions. The role of an EV is really it has a super strong argument. We see lots of discussion going on. Is electric mobility the only sustainable mobility? No, there are others as well. And depending on every sector, you should think about, is electricity really the right one? Heavy truckloads, for instance, could also use others. But I'm absolutely convinced that to have a sustainable breakthrough of a sustainable industry like the electric mobility industry, we should put all eggs in one basket to come to a breakthrough and then discuss whether hydrogen, whatever, is the next big thing or e-fuels. But concentration and full focus is which is, as you see it in numbers, changing the industry at the moment.
What do you think is the biggest challenge preventing people or consumers from investing more in EV vehicles?
Yeah.
Aren't more people driving it?
Hopefully, something like the presentation today, working against some of those concerns. That is when it's come of long distance driving, etc. I think numbers show already that the technical substance is really strong. At the moment, personally, to me, the strongest, very encouraging is the number of new products that comes on the market. Because rational arguments are always great, but if the cars are crap and don't have a good design, it doesn't work. So the key driver in the future will be that driving an EV is at least as easy going than in a combustion engine. It looks good, has the same price, etc. Because we all here, we are innovators. We are thought leaders. We are driving the industry, but we are not. At the end of it, we are not representing the population. The population are those who just think, okay, today have a combustion growth. Tomorrow I will want to have something similar. Ideally, it's EV, and this EV experience has to come as close as possible to this experience that the people have, even be better.
We have a question.
How could we prevent it? Wie kann man verhindern that the electric vehicles who are built are not all SUVs?
Oh. That's an interesting question, but honestly, you prevent an SUV is a challenge because the customer demand is highest in the EVs in the SUV segment. So that if you have other information, happy to share that you share it. But the pure fact that most of the EV manufacturers, as a first car producing the bigger ones, is based on the demand that they see in the market. Yeah?
But the demand is also pushed with marketing because they earn the most of money with SUVs and they push their marketing in it. It's
marketing influence clearly buying behavior, definitely so. But if you look at the combustion engine, I think the reason why we see so many SUVs driving on the streets, one element might be the clever marketing, but it's also a strong customer demand behind that. So, and it's probably both. And the question, if one would ignore the strong customer demand, and again, maybe it's better to have an SUV with an EV propulsion than having an SUV with a classical combustion engine in it. So, and this is the first step. Midterm, I'm absolutely with you. This should not be the future. And I think the best cars and the most attractive ones even are probably not the SUV designed. But I think this will change once we see more classical non-SUV type designs coming into the market in the future. But customer demand can't be ignored. Yeah. Other questions?
Hi, how do you see the trucking industry? You've mentioned that it depends on the range and depends on many different factors, but if you take into account, for example, refrigeration units, that consumes even more energy. What's your vision about that segment?
My vision is clearly that the truck industry will be electrified as well. Lots of discussion about hydrogen, etc., but currently the trend goes very much into electrification. For this, though, you need substantial investment into infrastructure because a normal truck can't charge at our charging stations, and our charging stations are not there where the trucks are. But just the pure fact that charging in a truck perfectly matches to the working hours and the intervals that truck drivers are allowed to drive. You know that they have to sleep and to eat and at certain intervals by law, which is a perfect fit to charge the truck at that moment. But again, it needs lots of investments. It needs the right product. It needs investment in the infrastructure. And we see both is coming. Both is coming. It will take, to be really relevant, 2 to 4 years at least, I think. But this is the future, for sure. Probably not for all transportation, really heavy load. Maybe we see also hydrogen coming in. depending yet on the infrastructure. So I could imagine that on certain hubs in Europe, we find big hydrogen fueling stations. Then that would make sense for a logistic company. But the pure growth of the charging infrastructure at the moment is such a competitive advantage that also then the truck industry will take advantage of. Please. I think we need a mic in the last row.
Thanks. How well does ChargeNow currently cover electric truck charging demands?
Oh, we are not in electric truck charging.
Not at all.
Not yet. Not at all.
Anything planned in the future?
I would not exclude it, but basically you could charge everything, every car with our service, be it a truck or a normal car. The question is only where is the charging infrastructure, how does it work exactly, and are there any technical challenges to it. But our service, once the market is relevant, could be used for everyone. What we do with ChargeNow for Business, we offer it to commercial fleets. And basically, commercial fleets is one important element of us, ChargeNow for Business, where we offer the charge service not for an individual, but with a fleet account. And then it's only the question, is there relevant substance of electric trucks coming into the markets? And then we would be there as well. I see you're very active, that's nice.
So, speaking about like also raw materials, etc., and in general electricity, if there will be in the future a so large number of cars, I mean, also this could cause also an increase of the electricity prices, and at the same time, like raw materials are not a real concern at the moment because there are not on the market so many vehicles, electric vehicles at least. But in the future, it will be a concern if there will be in the market a lot of cars. And so maybe like, I don't know, I mean, hydrogen and also fuels couldn't be a better alternative than electric vehicles, at least maybe not in the city. So you could have like an electric car, small for the city, and maybe a bigger one for, I don't know, maybe longer travels and etc.
Yeah, combination of different compulsion types could be an option, but yet how do you as a customer really want to have two cars with two totally different technological systems? Yet the experience in the past was, if you do not have the infrastructure there, then you can develop whatever you want. And we know that just the infrastructure for hydrogen to invest in that is so expensive. And we see it in the EV, we saw it in the EV segment. Once you reach a certain tipping point that the people feel comfortable that they can charge, then everything goes quite automatically. This is what we know at the moment. It's hard for me to imagine that the hydrogen industry would ever come in the next years to such a level, because investments would be huge, and we do not see the automotive manufacturers really going seriously in that segment. There are lots of manufacturers that are technologically open. They invest into all the areas to be flexible and to react to market trends. But the restriction of growth also in the future will be just the infrastructure, and we see it with the electric mobility at the moment. So I put my bet on electric, and then let's see what comes next. Combustion engine would wash out, and then depending on heavy load vehicles, for instance, there again hydrogen is probably superior, or maybe in terms of efficiency or infrastructure options to do it much cheaper or much more efficient, then maybe also in the future hydrogen becomes relevant. For now, I'm a bit skeptical. Good.
Concerning the hydrogen, if it's not a green one, it wouldn't help in the crisis we have just now. To fight climate change, we have to green hydrogen. If not, it would be even worse.
Exactly. And fuel efficiency, you saw my chart, hydrogen is worse than EV anyhow, but as you rightly say, the challenge is green hydrogen, and for all the demand we see currently coming up, it's already a challenge to get it really green, right? But if I stand here and just look back 5 or 7 years, when electric mobility was kind of a future cool thing, and now it is here, it's reality. So who knows what in 5 to 10 years comes, huh? So some external challenges, some external opportunities, price changes, whatever, and technological leapfrogs could even bring this sector more into the focus once we solve the challenge around green hydrogen. Okay.
So I have a question.
Go.
So e-mobility is disrupting transportation, the transportation sector essentially. Is there any kind of pull that this sector can have on the power generation, to follow from what she was saying about promoting greener energy?
Yeah. We see it already coming because the classical EV customer is very environmental conscious and sensitive, and challenging then, okay, nice that I have a sustainable car, but is there sustainable energy in there? And this, industry-wise, is still a challenge because there is now no such thing in the general net that is really green. So you can never be certain that what you put in your car as energy really comes from a sustainable source. Because sustainable energy, which is quite substantial already, goes into a big energy lake, basically, and out of that lake you pull out the energy. So the next thing, the current approach to it, that if you are using a green tariff, which also we and our customers are offering, that means that for every energy you pull out of the net, it's guaranteed that 100% green energy is put back into the net. So this is how, at the moment, we can ensure that we have a positive impact in terms of green energy. And the next step then will be that providers will come up that can really guarantee that from the energy source, the energy that is provided is directly sourced into the car. This goes great where you have, works well where you have water energy or you have wind energy and you can plug in directly. But everything else, I think in the future we will have to acknowledge the fact that it might not be one-to-one, 100% guaranteed, but with the push of this, the approach via certificates that for every energy pull out of the net, green energy has to put in at probably a higher price. We see step by step the industry converging. Yeah.
Great, thanks. One final question.
So your product seems to be very on the development side from the customer's experience point of view. Yeah? And you also have customer journeys and so on. I have the impression that the industry has a big focus on the technological side. Do you share this impression, and do you agree that the others could also improve, including the customer more into the development process?
So yes, it is an industry very much driven from technology, definitely so. And you always have the question, is there, what's first, the demand or the product? Huh? And I think product in the recent years had a big relevance of driving customer demand, of making clear there is a cool product that you can drive. Now we are in the phase where we have to put the customer more in the forefront when it comes to his and her demands. And now what we're providing as a customer journey, different steps, the navigation, the routing, maybe even booking and payment integrated as much as possible is one first driver. The second is that it is getting integrated behind the dashboard, so fully in the car, that ideally you do not have to care about it. And we know about from the research that this is what the customers demand. And then it's about price. So this is the next thing coming. So how can we ensure, or how can our offer ensure that the customer always charges at the best price? So dynamic pricing, flexible pricing will be the models that will come next. Here there are still some, let's say, technological challenges that prevent a full implementation of that, but we know that price sensitivity is very crucial. And this is where we first see now customer demand driving technology development as well. So, thank you very much. Thanks for your attention. Great questions. And I wish you still a great festival. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Jörg.